Hoyoverse seems to be on a roll with releasing some heavily anticipated mobile games recently, with games like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail all achieving huge success in the gacha game market. Now here comes the new Hoyo kid on the block, Zenless Zone Zero, which looks interesting with its fluid animations and character design. Does ZZZ hold up to its other Hoyo predecessors? How does it stack up to other mobile games in the market? Join us at GameMate as we dive into the stylish and vibrant world of Zenless Zone Zero. Zenless Zone Zero takes place in a new city called New Eridu, a city plagued by some otherworldly phenomena known as hollows. These hollows appear around the city and swallow up entire areas at a time. What makes these hollows dangerous are the creatures that lurk in them known as ethereals. These ethereals attack humans that fall into these hollows and may also corrupt them into other ethereals if they do not have the aptitude to survive in these hollows. It is up to public security, with the help of these adorable little devices called bangboos, to quell and contain these hollows and rescue any citizen that falls into them. Generally, people usually avoid venturing into these areas, but there are quite a few brave individuals that willingly dive into these hollows hoping to find things that are worth a fortune. These are where proxies and proxy network, known as Internaut, comes in. Proxies serve as guides for factions that are looking to explore the hollows away from the watchful eyes of the authorities. Enter the two siblings named Wise and Belle, who work as managers at a video store called Random Play. Although it looks like a normal video store, this is all a cover-up for their real work as the notorious proxy known as Phaethon. What makes the siblings unique as proxies is their ability to physically see through their bangboos and provide real-time support to whatever agent they are hired to assist. But some bad things happen during one of their jobs, and they are forced to start over from scratch. And now, they have to rebuild their reputation as proxies and reach the heights they achieved when they were under the alias of Phaethon. The story of ZZZ is told in multiple chapters, each focusing on the different factions found in New Eridu. These factions all hire their siblings to help and solve their problems for a prize. The standout thing about the story is that it is told in a mix of very well animated cutscenes and a comic book styled cutscenes. This gives ZZZ a very unique visual flair and makes sitting through the story quite entertaining. Zenless Zone Zero's gameplay is a high-octane and fast-paced action RPG that feels reminiscent of Honkai Impact 3rd, rather than the newer Hoyoverse games like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail. It focuses more on an arena-styled game where you go through different contained levels, completing different objects the game throws at you. You bring a team of 3 agents to battle to complete the many commissions you take on when you play through the game. These fights are fast-paced and require a bit of coordination with the team you have set up. There are quite a few mechanics to quickly defeat the many enemies you come across while exploring hollows. Aside from your basic attacks and combos, you have access to some skills as well as ways to defend yourself in these fights. The skills are entirely dependent on the character you are currently using, and the game encourages you to quickly switch between the 3 agents you have during the fights. Each agent has their own element as well as attribute that tells the player which role they are best suited for. It's also important to note that you get a buff when deploying a team with the same element, attribute, or faction. This makes creating your own team of agents a sort of puzzle of trying to maximize the potential of your team by choosing characters who synergize well with each other. For the defensive aspect of the combat, you have your typical action game dodge, which timing it perfectly to an enemy's attack gives you a bullet time-ish moment that allows you to quickly counterattack or reposition for a better placement on the field. The one that makes a difference though is a feature called Perfect Assist, in which switching a different agent right as the enemy is about to launch an attack allows the next agent to sort of parry the enemy's hit. This perfect assist raises up the stun bar of the enemy, and when the stun bar fills up, hitting an enemy with a special attack will allow you to do what is called a chain attack. These chain attacks are a sort of QTE in which you must choose which character you want unleashing their own chain attacks, which all have their own effects depending on which character you choose to go next. We do have a few minor complaints about the combat though, as it does feel a bit too simple and doesn't really require that much input from the player, which is strange coming from a fast-paced action game. Most of the combat encounters in the early game can be cleared by just mashing your attack button until the enemies are defeated. Although a minor gripe, this may push players who are looking for a more deep combat system away with how simple the combat is. It is worth noting though that the developers during the livestream mentioned that the game has a low floor, high ceiling combat system, so we hope that as more endgame content is introduced, it allows the combat to fully shine. Another thing that takes away from the combat immersion is the QTE suddenly slowing down during intense intense combat moments. While it does look cool and all, some players may find it to be a bit distracting as the sudden break in the combat interrupts the flow one would have when fighting a difficult enemy. Aside from the combat though, the game does also offer a sort of exploration system in which you use your bamboo to guide your agents through the hollows. The thing is, you don't physically see this and instead you are looking through the missions on the many monitors that the siblings have in their base. This makes sense in an immersive way since the siblings do not really have the aptitude to survive in the hollows for too long, and instead send their special bamboo to guide the agents instead. Now, while this may seem kind of boring and lazy, it's far from that with the way they portray this feature. The way the TVs and the visuals are animated and the many encounters you come across keeps it from getting too stale. They do have cutscenes, which are already very well animated, to break up the exploration from time to time to advance more of the story's plotline. It feels like a retro dungeon crawler where you must control your character through a maze-like screen, and it'll occasionally be broken up with a few special events and combat encounters. Aside from the main story missions you must progress through, the other missions you can take part in are the exploration commissions or the combat commissions. The combat commissions are pretty self-explanatory as all you need to do to complete these are defeating any enemy you come across until no more spawn in. It does shake it up from time to time by giving you certain special objectives that you must complete, like defending an area from the enemies trying to take over it. It is in the exploration commissions where the game really gets creative with the TV screen setups by introducing some puzzle elements that require a bit of thinking to solve. From tower defense to mirror puzzles, the exploration modes of the game allows the TV-style gameplay to really stand out. Now, aside from taking on different commissions, the game also offers a lot of things for players to do in between the downtimes during missions. From farming for materials to engaging in the game's endgame content, there are quite a lot of activities for you to take part in. Like the other Hoyoverse games, ZZZ operates on a sort of stamina system in which you must consume stamina for you to acquire the needed materials to upgrade your agents and their equipment to make them more powerful. So, during the early game, you must really be careful with which characters you build as your resources can be quite limited in the beginning. While waiting for your stamina to recharge, there are also a lot of different side activities you can take part in to earn some rewards. You can take part in the endgame content called Shield Defense and Hollow Zero, which allows you to test your knowledge of the game's mechanics and are a lot more intense than your normal commissions. You can also visit many areas around the city of New Eridu and interact with a lot of different shops like the coffee shop and the newsstand, which all give you some rewards or more energy to do stuff. The game even has a working arcade where you can play some retro-styled games with a ZZZ twist to them. Just look at this one, it's just Snake! Now, you are free to do all these things, but it is worth mentioning that you only have a limited amount of tasks your characters can do in an in-game day. This really doesn't impact the amount of things you can do, it's just a way for the player to feel more immersed into the game, as it makes it feel like your character is actually doing something to progress the time of the day in the game. Your time is divided into 4 different times of the day, and each of them have their own things to see and discover, like special quests and events that only appear on certain times of the day. It feels like they took a page out of the Persona series handbook, as you are only allowed to do a certain number of tasks in a day before it rolls over to the next. Oh, also be sure to be on the lookout for some familiar faces as you spend your free time roaming the city. You may come across some agents that you have worked with and are able to hang out with them and increase their trust ratings. Later in the game, you also unlock this feature to ask the agents you have obtained to hang out. These hangout events increase their trust towards you, and in turn you are able to earn in-game rewards. It's also a great way to get to know your favorite agents. Speaking of agents, since the game is a free-to-play gacha game, the only way to get the agents you want is by rolling the game's gacha. Much like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, the gacha in this game works on the 50-50 system in which you are only guaranteed a limited character or weapon if you somehow get a standard character before them. This seems to be Hoyoverse's standard now when it comes to their gacha games, and players of their previous titles should be very familiar with how these work. While we're on the topic of Hoyoverse's work, ZZZ is looking to be one of their most visually appealing and striking among their titles right now. ZZZ's visuals are honestly a feast for the eyes with all the flashy movements and stunning effects it has. The way the characters look and move are so fluid that it leaves us in awe with how expressive and well animated the characters are. From the facial expressions to the exaggerated, almost cartoony 3D animation style, you can tell the devs put a lot of effort into making these visuals feel vibrant and lively. Maybe they use the money they earned from Genshin and Star Rail to fund these, cause holy shit, these animations are amazing! The designs of the main characters are also a big standout, as the way they're designed really brings out the personality of each character. A great example of this are the two siblings, Wise and Belle, and their personalities really show with how they dress and act. Wise has the cool and level-headed older brother feel, while Belle has the spunky and sometimes mischievous younger sister vibe. These make the two protagonists an interesting pair, as the way they bounce off each other's traits make for an interesting dynamic. The other big standouts in the character designs are characters like Ellen, Nicole, and Lycon. Yes, there are furries in this game. These characters all have some unique traits that make them stand out among the many playable agents found in the game. Ellen with a maid shark vibe, Lycon being a refined furry butler, and Nicole who is... yeah. With all these great character designs, we do feel that some aren't as of a standout compared to others, and we hope that future characters will all have their own striking design to them that makes them unique. Even the world of New Eridu feels like a living place, with the many NPCs roaming around the world and making it feel alive. The NPCs you come across all have some memorable features to them. Characters like Asha from the arcade and Elfie from the record store are all very striking and amazing to look at. Then we have Susie. Why does she look so familiar? Even the random pedestrians you see walking around have some striking features, like some animal ears or maybe some horns. This makes for a diverse world and makes us excited to see the different playable character designs they can come up with in the future. It is important to note that since the game does have a lot of flashy images and effects, that there is an epilepsy warning when you start up the game, just in case players are prone to those. As for the sound design, it is no surprise that it is almost just as amazing as the visuals that accompany them. The combat effects feel weighty, which makes it feel very satisfying pulling off a perfect assist or a dodge. Even the voice acting for the English dub is great and does not have voices that get annoying as time goes on. I'm looking at you, Paimon.
How about we explore the area ahead of us later?
The music is also great to listen to and goes well with the game's very vibrant and stylized world. We actually listened to the soundtrack of the game while we were writing and editing this video. It's just that great. A special mention we would like to give a shout out to is the gacha pulling music. When you manage to get an S rank in your pulls, the game lets you know how epic it is by giving the instrumental a rap. Just take a listen.
I've been waiting for you, Master.
Hey, now that is how you hype up a gacha pull. We here at Game8 are giving Zenless Zone Zero a 76 out of 100. While we do have a few minor issues with some of the gameplay elements, like the simple combat system and the QTEs, everything else about it makes us look forward to what the game has in store for us in future updates, which we will visit again in the future once more updates are added to the game. With how interesting the world is and how stylish and visually appealing the game is, ZZZ looks like another big success for Hoyoverse. But what about you guys? Are you enjoying the game? What agent is your favorite so far? Let us know in the comments below. This is Game8 and we'll see you in the next one.